Alright, welcome back to Nick Lenz's Doctor Who review. Episode number 115. Like in the case of the previous episode, we're also kept another season for Doctor Who. This time the 20th season of the series. Now, you're thinking, wait, how? How is this the last one? Well, because I had previously reviewed the other stories. You know, this batch of stories. Unlike the previous season, like, basically for DVD-wise, like, I don't have Snakedance, obviously. But for this, it's not much here. It's like 4 DVDs here. You have The Arc Infinity, which started up the season. This one was the second one. And then you had the awesome Black Guardian trilogy, King's Demons, and the special 5 Doctors, which I counted part of the season. It may not be official story related to Doctor Who, but it is basically a story for it. So, when did I review these stories before this one? Well, in the case of the 5 Doctors, that was the first one I reviewed. I reviewed for episode 29 for the series. Yes. That was back in 2022, about 3 years ago. Yes. Let's see. So, as for the Black Guardian trilogy, this took up episodes 47 to 49 of the show. Yes. And this came out a little over 2 years ago. That's when I reviewed these 3 here. Arc Infinity, I reviewed that. That was this story right here. I had reviewed that, I don't think it was last year. This was just barely over 2 years ago I reviewed this one. As for King's Demons, which was the finale for the season, which was a really weird 2-parter, which I actually texted Janet Fielding about this. By the way, this year, at least I did this one almost 2 years ago now. Yes, I'll talk about my health. I'll talk a little more about that, what I found about her about related this one, after I discuss the story. So, in this story here, we have the Doctor Nyssa. By the way, this also is going to be Nyssa's last story to cover, because I recovered 2 stories that came out this one to feature Mara Undead and Terminus. So, last one for her. Like his last one, not only the last story to cover for season 19, the Black Orchid, but also the last story to cover Adric. Yep, last one for him. You're like, really? Yeah, really. Last one. Excuse me. So, you just have the Doctor and Nyssa. By the way, Nyssa does not wear a purple dress that she wears a lot of the time. The outfit, I read basically the outfits that Janet Fielding and Saracen had to wear in this story. They hated the costumes. They absolutely hated it. So, yeah, and they're ending up basically at the capital of the Samoan Empire, which Tegan basically doing trance basically, because the Mara is back. Yep, the Mara has returned. Except now the thing is, for one thing, we don't see. Now here's the weird thing: they arrive at a planet, but apparently it's been 500 years since the previous time. From Tegan's perspective, it's been a year. But in the case of the planet, it's been 500 years. And they claim that the Federation defeated the Mara, despite the fact that any viewer could probably tell people, no! Like, yeah, I was even with mirrors, obviously, but for some reason, the Federation credit, despite the fact that was the Doctor. There is no mention of the Doctor at all. The planet looks drastically different from its previous story. I think there's maybe a different planet probably nearby. So, and then we see a guy named Lon in the story. He's played by an actor. This actually was his one of his earliest appearances, and apparently, by the way, it's Martin Clennis. Which here's the weird thing with this guy: the young version of him, the one appears in the story, who was like in his 20s. He kind of looks like Macaulay Culkin the way he does nowadays. It's weird, really, this actor, how much of a striking resemblance he does. Yeah, and this was his sole Doctor Who appearance. And apparently he's embarrassed by this story, purely because of all the costumes that pop up in the story. Oh yeah, definitely. So I have to do some trancing, and also second story to feature Tegan's white outfit she wears, her signature attire for season 20. After wearing the flight uniform. Now in season 21, she wears this multicolored shirt and like a skirt, which she wears up until her last appearance in the show. Yep. So, epically with the Mara coming, and then somehow they end with the planet, and Lon himself is a guy who's really bored, explores the cave with some of the ways of the Mara, and about Crystal, which this was not present in the original story. And apparently Eric Saber, who's the story editor at this period of time, he did not write the story. It's the same person with the last one. It's good on basically doing that. But the story feels a lot like similar to Destiny Dialects. But unlike Destiny Dialects, which is basically not well liked by Doctor Who fans, I kind of like it. This one has a problem with the whole continuity stuff. I mean, clearly it's not the same exact planet like it was in the previous story. The only connection we had in the previous story was a scene later on in it, where you have a former director of, like, historical stuff, where he does the telepathic stuff for one scene. And that's the only other thing we have here. And the Mara looks so different than it did the last time it appeared. For one thing, it's a completely different shape, and it's different color. Yes. In the first story, he was red and pink. This time, the Mara is black and yellow. Yes. Yeah. And also, of course, Tegan, of course, gets lost, obviously, on the planet. And it's like running on the place, and the Doctor trying to convince the authorities what the heck is going on. They're not believing him at all for some reason. Excuse me. Not even necessarily a big problem. By the way, the person who was suspected before the whole thing with the Mara thing was revealed, it was suspected that Omega may have been responsible for, but Doctor's like, no, that's impossible because Omega's dead. Yeah, because he basically got Doctor's face, and then he just dissolves. Though he does spend more time after that. Yes, but in the show, they basically brought him back for that anniversary. Yes. So, and by the way, Tegan spends, like, I'd say about 50% of the story being possessed by the Mara. Yes, 50%. Like, it's like maybe this was planned for the season, but the whole 20th anniversary thing just happened to come up for Doctor Who, and they decided to bring classic stuff. But the Mara is not something that's classic at this point in time. Yet there's the Dalek, the Cybermen. Daleks will come back the next season of the show, along with the Silurians and Sea Devils, which the only reason why they brought it because 20th anniversary flavor. Okay. But not in the case of this one. No. The other reason I think they did this follow-up story because the first one was well received. Though, I think the story here is actually better because you don't have like half the cast being mute. Here, everybody speaks the whole story, and by the end of the story, the Mara is finally put to rest. Yes. On the show, with the exception of a brief mention in Time Crash, which they actually do reference the Mara here, The Mar never returns on screen. Nope, never does. This was a, well, technically, well, I think that apparently the Mara did kind of appear in Torchwood. It did appear in 3 Doctor Who stories. One is Cradle of the Snake. Excuse me. Which came out in I think it was 2010. Also came back an 8th Doctor story, The Glooming, and a Torch monthly range, Art Decadence. It's popped up. Well, there was about, well, obviously it popped up in novelization through stories. Also popped up in short stories, including one comic book, Happy Death Day. A comic book that came out back in 1998. Yeah. And on screen, the Mar is done. Completely done. Yeah, unlike some of the stuff related to the previous story, it's like, the best way to describe it is like, it's not here, per se. But at least I handled the fact this show basically did a much better job how they handled the snake. It didn't look cheap like it did last time. But I thought it was really weird they had to change the snake's color. And there's no Mindscape stuff like it was last time. And mostly put a lot of the flashbacks during the trance was in fact all stock footage from Conda. Also, the story is noteworthy featuring the late Elizabeth Slade's husband, the story. Oh, by the way, also, I forgot to mention this for Conda. Did you know the star of Elementary was actually in Conda? You're like, how is he in Conda? He was one of the child actors. Yeah. Yeah, he was one of the child actors in the last story. Yeah, I found that to be interesting. Yep, a guy who basically became famous in the US by starring on a show on CBS where he plays Sherlock Holmes. And that was an early appearance by him as a child. But it's a much more better story, per se, than the last time. Ever gets plenty to do here. The Doctor needs a little relaxation. The story doesn't do a lot, but it's more like basically a Janet Fielding, at least she's not asleep half the story. Like in the case of, well, Mako Zakanda, and, excuse me. But, yeah, that's the story. So, Final Thoughts Season 20. An amazing season. Yes, this season did an excellent job promoting 20th anniversary, but it didn't feature all the classic characters. It did feature, like, some returning ones, but not a lot of them. And, like in the case of last season, now on to the rankings. So, what do I think is the weakest story of this whole season? Surprisingly, it is The King's Demons. According to Janet Fielding, I actually tweeted this on Twitter. She mentioned to me about this. She does not look fondly on King's Demons. The thing she remember about the story is that she was freezing cold for a lot of the story, and she hated Chameleon. Yeah. A master story being the weakest story of the whole season. Because the story is, like, so out there. And plus, how the Doctor survived the time the man survived the time flight, never explained. Alright, so, excuse me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think it's 6. And I think I missed one. Let's see, 3, 4, 6. Okay, so for number 7, it's King's Demons. What do I rank as number 6? It's going to be a tough one. I would probably say... The season was actually... This is a season I really enjoyed, but what do I rank number 6? I'm going to give it to... Surprisingly... Well... I give the Terminus. Purely because, basically... of the Black Garden trilogy, it's the weakest story of all of it. It's not a terrible story, per se. Though I could also give it to Mario Undead. I could basically give Mario Undead number 6. I can give Terminus number 5. I'll give number 4 to Enlightenment. Number 3, I'll give the Snakedance. Number 2, I give it to Arc Infinity. And my number 1, the best story of Season 20 is the special. Yep, this is the best one. That's my Ask Panda Matter. Yes. What is those rankings? How like? Okay, so I would love to know basically how people felt about Season 20 and how would they rank Season 20. I just list my ranking Season 20. So once again, this is number 7. Excuse me. Mario Undead, number 6. Terminus, number 5. Enlightenment, number 4. Number 3, Snakedance. Number 2, Arc Infinity. And number 1, The 5 Doctors. And with that, Season 20 is done. Another season completed. Yep. So, some of you are curious, like, how many seasons are now? Like, 2 episodes in a row, you finished the season. Well, this season only had 1 to go, so that was not an issue. No. So right now it's 7, 11, 12, 15, 16, 17, 19, and 20. This now makes 8 seasons reviewed. Yes, 8 seasons. Out of 26. So now I have currently 18 to go. Now, next review, this will be after I finish all the other stuff I work on, will be the last 2 stories to review for Season 21. Awakening and Frontiers. Yep. But yeah, that's pretty much it for a particular video. Please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, notifications. Next up, new anime, Black Summoner. Okay, thanks you. Bye.